What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with Create 0.3, and today we are going to be setting up a storage and sorting system. Now, storage and sorting systems are nothing new to the world of Minecraft. They've been around in both vanilla and modded Minecraft for pretty much as long as I can remember, and there is such a wide variety of different options to choose from, depending on the level of complexity that you're looking for. On one end of the spectrum, you've got the vanilla options. On the other end, you've got the modded options like Applied Energistics 2. Everything else just kind of falls somewhere in between those, including the setup that we're going to be doing today using the Create mod. Now, the setup that we're doing today is going to be easier to make than a vanilla setup, it's going to be cheaper than a vanilla setup, and it's going to be more efficient than a vanilla setup, but I will say it's definitely not going to be as overpowered as some of the other modded Minecraft options you might have access to if you are playing in a mod pack. So we're going to fall somewhere in between on that spectrum, which I'm definitely okay with, especially because it's going to look super cool when you get to see it in action. Obviously, pretty much everything in Create does, and for me, that is a huge selling point as to why to use this. It's still going to accomplish the same goal of taking items, sorting them, and putting them into chests. And that's really the main objective I want for today, is to be able to put all of my items into a chest right over here, have them pulled out the back, sorted behind the scenes, and then put into the appropriate chests that will fill up this huge space in the wall right here. Now, I figured this was a good time to finally set this up because we are 20 odd episodes into this series, and there are a ton of automated setups upstairs that are making us a wide variety of different blocks. We've got things like bread, chocolate, cake, iron, gold, andesite, all these different automated setups going, and my inventory fills up so quickly with different blocks that I'm grabbing from all over the place, moving different places, having to sort, organize, all this annoying junk, and all I want is to be able to dump it in a chest and have it automatically taken care of. It's becoming so much work managing my inventory and the chests around the base that I don't want to deal with it anymore. So we're doing this, and it also is going to help me because every episode, at the end of the episode, my inventory is an absolute mess. I'm sure you guys have seen it. So I'm just going to come down here, dump it all in a chest, and be done with it for the day. And that will be such a great feeling. I absolutely cannot wait. So this is going to be the room where we make our storage and sorting setup, in case you guys could not already have guessed that, but this might look a little bit familiar to some of you if you've been watching the series for a while, and that's because our old iron generator used to be located in this room, but last episode, obviously, we made a new iron generator. It's way better. So I came in here, tore down the old one, which used to be on this wall right here, and decided to spruce up the room a bit so we could put it to good use for our storage system. And that's going to go right over here. I've already cleared out the area. I've lit it up, and I think it looks pretty nice. I think it'll look even nicer once all the chests are in here and the item frames are up and all the items are in them and it's all working, but I still like how it looks already. And then there's some open room on the other walls in case we need to expand on the 36 double chest setup over here, since admittedly 36 double chests is not a crazy large storage system and we may eventually need more. So thankfully, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to go over before we get to jump into the requirements for today's setup. So we should be good to do that now, and if we look in here, there's really not that much in this chest, which is definitely always a good thing. It means the setup should be pretty quick and not super complicated, which is always welcome, as we've had some seriously complicated ones to go over recently, and I definitely enjoy a little bit of a break. I will say though quickly that these requirements are for my 36 double chest setup. If you plan on massively increasing or decreasing the number of chests, you will need to adjust the mechanical component quantity accordingly. So just something to be aware of. This is going to be stuff specifically for my exact chest quantity. So we're going to be using one mechanical arm, one cogwheel, one large cogwheel, a rotation speed controller, 5 shafts, 2 mechanical belts, 75 chests, 38 brass funnels, a horizontal gearbox, a vertical gearbox, 36 item frames, so one for each chest, and then a bunch of item filters. You don't need exactly 64, but I would have at least 36, if not a few more than that, and we'll go over why in a little bit. So we should be good to grab all of these items out of this chest right here and begin setting this whole thing up. And thankfully, the first step is a very simple one. I need to put down all 36 double chests, and I do want to say quickly, we are going to have chests that are more so than just the 36 double chests here. Obviously, we would only have 72 if we were just doing the double chests here. So don't worry, my math isn't bad. We do need 3 additional chests for elsewhere in our setup. I want to quickly note that my math is not that horrible. Sometimes it's off, but it's not that bad. So I'm going to quickly set up all the double chests that'll be filling up this 9x4 area. And then I will jump back because it's definitely not something that's really entertaining enough to do on camera. And other than talking about the weather randomly, I really don't know what else to say to you guys right now. Okay, so now all the chests have been set up. Hopefully majority of the tedious work outside of setting all the different filters is done for the episode. I will quickly note, and some of you probably noticed this, but I was not even thinking about the fact that we had terracotta all along the top, totally solid regular blocks, which meant the upper chest couldn't open. So I don't really know what I'm going to do with that just yet. I adjusted it so that they at least can open now, but I'm not really satisfied with how it looks. So again, I got to figure out what I'm doing with that, but for the time being, it's fine. I do really like how it looks with all the chests and the item frames though. I'm sure it'll look even better once the items are in the item frames. But like I said, hopefully most of the tedious work for the episode is now done. The second thing we need to do is come back behind the scenes and start doing some work back here. And the first thing we want to do now that the chests are there are put down the brass funnels. And we're going to be putting one of these down on every single chest that we have. And this is going to allow us to sort through and filter what the mechanical arm that we're going to put right over here is able to place in each chest. So this is the actual sorting component of the system. It's very simple to work with. It's a trick I don't think a ton of people know about or utilize. And it's really nice when you're sorting stuff both in chests and in mechanical crafters, which we used in the automated cake factory. So I'm going to put one of these on each, and if we look right here, the important thing is that when you put it down, you want it inputting into that chest. So if you guys don't know, there's an arrow that points on the side. If it's pulling out, it'll look like this. It'll be pretty obvious because if there were any items in there, it'll fall right out onto the ground. You want the arrow facing inward. And a very easy way to do this automatically so you don't need to wrench them is shift right click them on to each chest, and that should default put them in. Otherwise, you're going to notice when you go to put down your mechanical arm that you're not able to set these as outputs for the mechanical arm since they're not going to be inputs for a chest, and that'll immediately tip you off to the fact that this part is not set up correctly. So we're going to put all these down. I think it looks very funny on the back of this wall now, but once these are down, we have the inputs available on these chests. And if we didn't care what went into what chest, we could just put the mechanical arm down and it would toss items in here pretty much willy-nilly. It would go one to the next, to the next, to the next. The important thing though is that we utilize the filters effectively to filter out what does and does not go in. Before we can do that though, we need to set up the belt system, which will carry items from over here all the way around back in front of the mechanical arm and allow items to get put into these chests. And the important thing here is the ratio of speeds, because the goal is to make sure that no item is able to get past the single mechanical arm, which will be putting items in every single one of these chests. Otherwise, you're going to have issues because even if it should get sorted, if the items are moving on the conveyor too fast, then some of them will make it past the mechanical arm without getting picked up and they won't get sorted properly. So the correct ratio of the RPM of the mechanical arm to the RPM of the belt system is 256 RPM for the arm to 32 RPM for the belt system. Any higher, even just 48 RPM, and you are going to have some items that occasionally make it past and end up over here, which in the end will in fact be a chest, but its purpose is not going to be for collecting items that are already filtered out in the system. So right here, I have an input coming in. It's already going in the correct direction, and it is going to be running at 32 RPM, and then we'll be gearing that up over here when we set up the mechanical arm. So we're going to start out by setting up our belts over here, and we're just going to put down one shaft right there, flip it, a second shaft right here, and we're going to flip this. This will be our first belt, and then the second belt is going to be run from over here, and then we're going to run it all the way down here to this rotational input. And it may seem a little bit weird that we're extending this one more than we need to, but there actually is one reason for that, and it's to make the gearbox connection easy right here. So if we connect these up, we should then verify that both of these are in fact going in the correct direction. So we want to make sure that the items are coming from here where the chest is going to be onto this belt and then over in front of the mechanical arm, which will be going right here. The next thing that we want to do is set up the mechanical arm, and this means making all the inputs and the outputs appropriately for this. Now, I will say that the range of the mechanical arm is something I get questions about all the time, and I did a little bit of testing, and the overall range appears to be 4 blocks horizontally and 4 blocks vertically, but it does make a circle, so it is going to be 3 blocks diagonally. A lot of people I see say it's 4 blocks in every direction, including diagonally, which doesn't really make sense considering that would mean it stretches even further on the diagonal, but that means that we are going to be able to have it extending to every single one of these chests, assuming we put it on top of this block right here, so one above where the mechanical belt is. And to set this properly, we are going to select these 5 mechanical belts right here, and then we are going to select every single one of these brass funnels. So thankfully, because these mechanical belts are read as outputs, or inputs I should say, for our mechanical arm, and all these brass funnels are read as outputs for the mechanical arm or inputs for the inventory they're going into, we are able to simply right click on the belts and right click on the funnels, and it will automatically detect them as the appropriate input / output. So you don't need to worry about double clicking or anything like that. And if you don't know, the blue is going to be the input for the mechanical arm, and the gold or yellow is going to be the output. So we're just going to make sure that all of these are selected. Once we have them, we can just double check, and then we can slap down the mechanical arm. And you can see we got the organizatron, which means that you have selected, I believe, it's 10 different inputs or outputs, 10 or more output locations. You may have also noticed when we placed down the mechanical arm that there was a small white text message that popped up in the middle of the screen, and this is indicating the amount of inputs and outputs that are currently registered for the mechanical arm you just placed down. Now, if the message was simply white and that was it, that means that every input and every output you had set was totally acceptable for your mechanical arm. None of them were out of range and everything is good to go. It's going to work perfectly. And so that is a good sign. If you have a red message that pops up along with that, that is going to indicate that some of the inputs or outputs were out of the acceptable range of the arm, which is, like I said earlier, 4 vertical, 4 horizontal, and 3 diagonal. And if that happens, that message is indicating all those unacceptable inputs and outputs have been disconnected from the arm, and you're going to have to go back through, reattach everything after you find out what the problematic input or output was. So hopefully that doesn't happen to you guys, but if it does, pick it back up, go through the step we just did all over again, and make sure that you have everything within the acceptable range, and you'll be good to go. Once you have down the mechanical arm though, and everything works out like ours did first try because we're super lucky, then we can worry about getting power to this. And thankfully it's really easy, but we need to make sure it's coming in at 256 RPM because like I said, we want to run this at max speed so it's able to very quickly sort all the items on the mechanical belt. And again, the ratio is going to be 32 RPM on the belt to 256 on the arm. And that should be more than enough to make sure that every item in here gets grabbed and sorted appropriately when the time comes. So we are going to grab out our rotation speed controller, our cog wheels, and our shaft. And we are going to come down right here. We're going to put down our shaft in this mechanical belt. We're going to put down our rotation speed controller right here, slap down our large cog wheel inside this. Then we're going to come over here, vertical gearbox it up because the direction does not matter. Put it down right here with a regular cog wheel, and that is attaching to the mechanical arm. The last thing we got to do is just adjust the speed of this, and I think we got to mine down here real quick so that we can scroll this all the way up. And now it is going crazy fast. It looks pretty funny when it's doing that. Are these? Yep, these are bricks down here. So we'll put this back down. But now we have power going to the mechanical arm, so if an item were to show up in here, it should be able to insert them into any of these brass funnels. Now obviously we do not have filters on any of these, so if we were to drop items, it pretty much would just go from one to the next, putting a single item in each one as they come on the belt, but we can quickly run a test and just verify that it does work. So I can't even tell which chest that just ended up in. It was super fast, but if we toss a couple of these down, we will get to see that it picks them all up. And it's pretty much right when they reach the acceptable input. So right here, I think is the first input for the mechanical arm, but we can just dump these down and, oh, that one went in that bottom one over there. So if we were to come out front, we should be able to see, I think it started with the far chest. So it probably has to do with how we set these up. So if we look here, yep, we got one of the polished blocks in there, one in here. So you can see, like I said, it is simply alternating between all of these since none of them have filters. And this is an important thing to note because it is why we want to put a filter on every single one of these. Otherwise, we're going to have random blocks that should be filtered somewhere else, ending up in one of the later ones. And before we do that, there is one last step. So I am going to break my way in here just for when we're setting the actual filters. I want to make sure that we actually grab this back so it doesn't end up in one of those chests, but we need to be able to get back in here. I'll probably put a door down somewhere so we can access the behind the scenes for setting the filters, but we want to put our dump chest down, and we're going to put it down right here. I'll probably end up making it look nice over here specifically for this chest, but not too concerned about that right now. The only thing we need to worry about is putting down the brass funnel. Now you might be wondering why we're using a brass funnel. We're not using a chute. We're not using an andesite funnel. We're not using a hopper. That is because the brass funnel will extract items the fastest. Brass funnels can extract up to a full stack of items, whereas with a chute, if we were to have it dropping from below the chest, it'll drop 16 at a time. Obviously, we want them to be full stacks, so we use the funnel. Andesite funnels do a single item at a time. So we're using this even though we don't want to filter it. I know a lot of people seem to think that brass funnels are just used for filtering stuff. They are also used if you need to move full stacks or potentially full stacks at any given time. So now if we were to dump items in here, it will pull out full stacks. It'll pull them out relatively quickly, dump them on here. And so we should be good to cover this area up at least. So it'll look at least semi-acceptable out here. It still looks a little wonky because you can see the funnel down here, but regardless, we're pretty much at the final stages of this setup, and it's occurring to me, I was testing out these granite slabs over there when I was trying to fix the top area, so I should probably put those back down here. I did not like how it looked, just so you guys know. It did not look good at all. It looked horrible, but now what I need to do is basically head off camera and set up all of my filters. So a quick example of how I'm going to do this is I'm going to grab out a filter and I'll show you what I meant when I talked about the JEI working really well with filters. So we have a regular filter here and you can use attribute filters. I might end up using an attribute filter for create items and that'll be really nice. The only downside is it'll grab things like the create ingots, which I actually want to go in my ingot chest. So a little bit of an issue there, but for this one at least, we're going to set one for regular stone and cobblestone. So all we do is left click and drag from JEI into the filter, click OK, and now if we come in here, we actually set all of these to be stone and cobblestone, so I'll have to clear some of these out so we can just delete the data in those. But this one right here is the proper filter set for stone and cobblestone. I might eventually want them to have individual chests, but that's just an example. And then we just toss it down inside one of these. So throw it down as the filter up there. And now that chest will be for stone and cobblestone. So I'm going to quickly run through, decide what I want for all the different filters for these chests, set them all up, and then I will hop back and we can see the system in action and go over one last thing we're going to add in over there as a failsafe for the system in case something is not properly sorted for us. Okay guys, so we are back and I believe it is finally done. So I have categories and filters set for all of these. I think it looks pretty cool being able to see all the item frames on the front with a general idea of what is going in that chest. I will say these probably seem pretty random, but I at least tried to start out with our first 36 double chests being things that are frequently turning up in my inventory. So things that we have automated setups to make. We get tons of apples, tons of bread, cake, charcoal, chocolate, iron, gold, all of that stuff, and then just miscellaneous things that we might run into, frequently used blocks, mob drops, resources, and then over here on the end, I actually put down some attribute filters that I wanted made, which are specifically meant for create items. So I'm actually interested in seeing how it works with the overlap between stuff that is introduced by create going into these chests and things like the andesite alloy here, which is from create, or maybe the bars of chocolate, which are also from create, and seeing which one it chooses to put them in. If there's an issue with that and we have to deal with it, I don't know. But we're pretty much ready to go. I'm pretty excited to have this finally working. The last thing we need to do though is come down here and deal with the failsafe. Now, my inventory is a mess. I filled this up with a bunch of miscellaneous things from my chests over at the entrance to the base. so we can test this out when it's done. But I wanted to put down a double chest right here, and we want to put down a brass funnel going right in there and leave it like that. And the purpose of this is so that when items come by and they are not properly filtered using any of these, which will inevitably happen. It's going to happen a lot, especially at the start when I'm not totally sure what we need specifically filtered in and out. Well, then they'll go in here instead of either stalling out the belt system or popping off and despawning. So, of course, that's definitely not what we want happening, so they will still get stored in this chest, and every once in a while we can come back here, see what has yet to be set in a filter, what might be causing an issue, and adjust it accordingly. But that should be pretty much everything we need behind the scenes for now. We can plug this hole up in a minute. We should probably dump all of this stuff in here, though, and see that it actually works. So let's get as much as we can up here. There's certain things I don't want to dump out. I don't want to... Well, I think pretty much everything else up here should probably get dumped out. I still want to build more with these, but I think all of this stuff I don't want anymore. So let's just click all this stuff in there and watch as our system sorts it and see that it in fact does actually work. So everything should be getting sorted. You can see it has a slight pause as it grabs the items off of here, and each one is going to go into the correct chest. You can see they are coming in full stacks where applicable, and it looks like there isn't anything in here. I tried to grab stuff that we would actually specifically need to have filtered. So there we go, and I believe that should be good. So if we come and look in here, we got some cobblestone, we got some regular stone. I don't think we had any dirt. We had some charcoal and regular coal. I believe we had bread. We had a lot of bread. They thought I might have grabbed some apples. Maybe I didn't. We should have had some chocolate. Oh, you know what? Let's see if they ended up in some of the create chests. So the create one's over here. So there is overlap, as we can see, between the attribute filter and the strict filter set on this for the gabbro, or however you pronounce it. You can see the wool sorted properly, the terracotta sorted, the iron, the gold, and I think that was pretty much it. We got the buckets and the water bucket in here. So we should be good then to look over here. And did anything make it through? Nope, looks like nothing made it through, which means that everything was properly sorted out, which is great. And I think that's going to be pretty much it for the setup today, guys. Obviously, like I said, you can expand this as much as you'd like. You can have more chests. You can filter them however you want. But this is a pretty basic setup so that you can have all your sorting done by just a single mechanical arm that really does not require much stress capacity to run and should make your life a lot easier. I know it's definitely going to make mine easier. So you know what? We got to grab out this terracotta before we finish up the episode so we can plug this hole in the wall right here. So let's do that real quick so it looks a little bit better, and then we can just dump that back in there and let that get sorted. We can even dump these filters in there because they're made by Create, so that'll get put in one of those chests over there. So again, that's going to be it for today, guys. Let me know what you think about this setup, and if it's at least nicer than a vanilla item sorter and easier to set up. I don't expect it to compete with any other modded thing, but hopefully it at least competes with the vanilla one. And that is that's pretty much it. So I will talk to you guys later.